I'm Tom and I'm a wellbeing coach at Isorropia. In this video, I'm talking about automatic negative thoughts, or ANTs to give them their acronym. As human beings, we have lots of thoughts. A study in 2020 by Queen's University in Canada concluded that the average person will have 6,200 thoughts per day. Many of these thoughts are the same every day, and a surprising number are negative, about 80%, according to the National Science Foundation in the US. These repeating negative thoughts are known as ANTs, automatic negative thoughts. These ants exist in our minds, a bit like a formicarium, that's an ant farm to you and me, in our heads. Sometimes we fall into the trap of feeding that ant colony, and we may notice both black ants and red ants. The ants which upset us the most and cause the strongest emotional responses are called hot thoughts. These are often our established beliefs, and when there's no truth in reality to them, we can make the thinking error of assuming these ants are facts, as we never stop to challenge them to see if there's any evidence to support them, however firmly we believe them. These are our red ants. They're the ones that really bite and sting. What sort of thoughts come into the category of automatic negative thoughts? Well, there are various types. All or nothing thinking, also called black and white thinking, a belief that things are either right or wrong, good or bad. It can lead people to think in rigid, immovable ways, or lead people to give up at the first small sign of failure. It must be like this or it's wrong. I failed, I'm never trying again. In the real world, things are rarely ever completely black or white. One little mistake or slip up doesn't necessarily mean complete failure. We can try again. We could try to develop a more middle ground perspective in situations where we had previously had a tendency to be too rigid. This can help us avoid the all or nothing take on life. It's a dirty word for some, but finding compromises can be positive. It isn't always win-lose. Our mental filter. We see the world through our own personal filter, which for some people means only being able to see the negative. Only seeing the dark side of things leads to not being able to recognise the positives. I only came second in that race, I wanted to come first, rather than, brilliant, silver medal, how cool is that? I've been promoted, this will mean more work and longer hours. Or, I've been promoted, this is a great opportunity and means I'm valued and trusted. Same situation, but the emphasis and therefore how we experience it is very different. Actively giving a positive spin to events helps lift our mood. Jumping to conclusions. Sometimes I act as if I believe I'm actually capable of mind reading by presuming I know what other people are thinking without having any evidence to support my assumptions. Amy didn't say hello to me this morning. I must have done something wrong. We do need to avoid jumping to conclusions. We can't read someone else's mind and we never know for sure exactly what they are thinking. Maybe Amy was just busy. Maybe she'd received some bad news that morning. My snap conclusions, especially those that I make all about me, aren't the same as facts. The situation may be very different to my automatic negative thought. Fortune telling. Believing we can accurately predict the future and then having negative expectations about what will happen. What's the point of me joining in the quiz that won't ask anything I know about? I'll never get an answer right. Or, I'm never going to be able to quit smoking, so I might as well have this cigarette. It's beneficial for us to keep an open mind about the future. Having negative expectations based on past experiences can rule out the real possibility of change. Is the worst case scenario the only one we need to consider? Or is that yet another automatic negative thought? Labelling. This is assigning labels, especially hypercritical ones, to either ourselves or other people. I'm a born loser, I'm just completely useless. The people I work with are total idiots. What's required here is an exchange of unhelpful negative labels for positive reinforcement. Maybe not everything I've tried has been 100% perfect first time, but I have skills and knowledge, and all in all, a worthwhile person. Over-generalizing. This is where we bring in words like always, never, nothing, every time, everyone into our self-talk or our conversations with others. If something bad happens once, you expect it to happen again and again and again. I'm never any good at things like that. Nothing good ever happens to me. Avoid using absolutist words like always, never, everybody. Just because something has happened once does not mean it will automatically happen again. Compare and despair. This is a description of whenever we compare ourselves unfavourably to others. I'm so bad at delivering workshops I'll never be able to present as well as Charlie. Why isn't my car as new and shiny as hers? Truth is, we're all different. We all have different things we're good at, and we all have different problems and challenges in our lives. Many world-faiths teach about avoiding making comparisons, as we risk either becoming downhearted if we feel we don't measure up, or we can become arrogant and superior if we think we're better than other people. Neither is desirable for balanced mental well-being. Emotional thinking. This means thinking that the way we feel about something must make it true. I feel like a failure, therefore I must be one. He thinks I've behaved like an idiot, so that's what I am then. I'm feeling anxious about making this topic video, so I know for a fact it's going to go badly. Instead, we can recognise that how we're feeling about a situation is simply a reaction to our way of thinking. Whenever we find we've made an assumption based on our feelings, we can choose to challenge this perspective by seeing if there's any real evidence for our conclusions. Guilty thinking. When we tell ourselves words like should, must, ought, we may allow feelings of guilt to build up, and that can make us feel like no matter how much effort we've put in, we are still failing. I must clean my house more often. I should have done that job by now. I ought to have known that was a wrong decision. You're allowed to be kind to yourself. Self-talk words like should, must and ought can add excessive pressure. Don't expect yourself to be a miracle worker. Just be reasonable about what is possible or likely. Catastrophizing. This is thinking some disaster, however unlikely, is bound to happen, or attaching too much importance to a negative experience, often then accompanied by too little importance attached to a positive experience. I got my diary dates mixed up. I'm going to get sacked for sure. I think I've left the gas on. The house is going to blow up. Recognizing when catastrophizing is the likelihood of something bad happening, pause to consider just how likely it is in reality. Then ask what would be a more realistic way of thinking. Apportioning blame. This refers to believing others are always to blame for things that have gone wrong without taking any responsibility for our actions or our ability to make things better. I would have been head of department by now if it wasn't for them muscling in. It's important to remember that we're all responsible for our own lives, and we have the power to change the direction our future takes. Personalizing. This can be either blaming yourself for something that wasn't entirely your fault, or thinking what someone does or says is a reflection of how they feel about you. It must have been something I did that meant we missed the deadline. Paul's very quiet today. I don't think he likes me at all. If something isn't your fault, you don't have to automatically blame yourself. This is such a negative effect on our self-worth and confidence. So why do we have these automatic negative thoughts? There are two main reasons why we have ants. First, having some negative thoughts is perfectly normal, so don't think you need to berate yourself for having them. They exist to keep you safe. Our early ancestors survived by constantly being on the lookout for threats, handling problems as they arose, and then learning from their mistakes. Imagination is one of the greatest aspects of the human brain, and we use it to visualize potential dangers and problems. This can help us head them off before they happen. But this capability to speculate about threats can also work against us by turning our minds into random negative thought generators. The reason some of us have many more automatic negative thoughts than average is that our negative thinking has become a habit. So with up to 95% of our thoughts being repeats, we end up with pretty much all the same thoughts today that we had yesterday. And if we do something often enough, which includes negative thoughts, we create what's called a neural pathway. The more we do it, the stronger the connections in the brain become. This is how we develop habits and why it's hard to break an unhealthy habit when we want to be rid of it. So, are ants harmful? If automatic negative thoughts are normal and exist to keep us safe, how can they be harmful? The downsides of ants are chronic stress, which in a real sense changes the brain. Every negative thought we have alters our brain chemicals, leading to unwanted outcomes. The undesirable effects of automatic negative thinking include reduction of the happy neurotransmitters like serotonin, dopamine, slowed production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, BDNF, which is a protein required for new brain cell formation, shrinking the brain's size but enlarging the brain's red alert fear center, the amygdala, increasing your risk of poor mental well-being. Accelerating the brain's aging process. Chronic stress can change the brain right down to the level of its DNA. Although it feels like the negative thoughts are keeping you safe, what they can end up doing is gripping you in a vicious cycle of anxiety and depression. What can we do about them? Recognise when we're having automatic negative thinking. Don't engage with the should, ought and must thoughts. Checking if there's factual evidence to support these thoughts. Acknowledge if we're feeling overwhelmed by thoughts. Don't force ourselves to have positive thoughts. Sit with the feelings. Like recognising when we're having ants, there's also power in simply acknowledging the strong feelings they provoke. And sitting with feelings has a role because embracing the fact that emotions are present takes a lot less energy than fearing it. Making mental shifts isn't about flipping "I feel sad" to "I feel happy." If that was all it took, anxiety and low mood would simply be bounced out of existence. It's okay to feel sad. It's okay to feel anxious. Take a break and give yourself the space to process the emotions. Ways of coping with ants. Mood diary. Keeping a record in a mood diary can help recognise how thinking can affect feelings and mood. Once you've used the mood diary to identify your ants, you can look at these thoughts in more detail and change any unhelpful thinking. Trying not to think these thoughts can just make the anxiety worse. It's much better to challenge them and tackle any worries directly. So if step 1 is using a thought diary to identify unhelpful thinking styles, step 2 is to explore the thought. What are the particular automatic negative thoughts that keep coming back? Step 3, consider what you are doing or what is happening when you have this thought. Step 4, challenge the thought. What evidence is there for this thought? Step 5 is the ant and negative prediction, like playing the what if game. What are the real chances of this happening? Check the evidence for and the evidence against. The Americans have an expression, take the thought to court. When looking at the evidence against the thought, consider the following. Am I not seeing or am I ignoring the evidence that does not support this thought? Step 6. What would you say to a good friend who told you they were having this ant? Step 7. What would be a more helpful and accurate way of thinking? Challenging your thoughts is the most important way to control automatic negative thoughts. But there are also some techniques you can use to support the process. You probably won't be surprised to hear me suggest you could meditate. Meditation helps quieten the mind and helps regulate negative thought patterns. Meditation techniques help us to notice, acknowledge, and let thoughts pass without engaging with them. Meditation isn't the only technique for stilling the mind. Similar results can come from other mind-body exercises like yoga, tai chi, or qigong. As long as we do something mindfully, we can pretty much turn anything into a meditation. And finally, gratitude. It's almost impossible to feel overwhelmed by negative thinking while at the same time feeling grateful. Our attitude of gratitude reduces negativity by boosting chemicals, the feel-good brain chemicals like serotonin and dopamine. According to Dr. Robert Emmons, gratitude promotes mental and emotional resilience while minimizing underlying negative emotions. Thanks for watching this video, and we'll see you again soon.